Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching the Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it!
Not long now folks, we've done 60 games, now we got to look at another 40 games and this is the last batch of 20 that I'll be doing. The two videos after this will be in two batches of 10 because I want to focus a little bit more on each of those particular games. Not to mention, I don't think the top 20 should be done in one batch. I think it's probably better to do those as two separate batches of 10. But yeah, we're now into games where like the minimum rating is 9, if not a 10 out of 10. I mean, these are games that are going to be pretty dang solid for me. And there's certainly some new ones that have turned up. And what have we got here? 1, 2. Okay, so only two debuts in this particular section, but the rest have undergone a bit of a mixture of ups and downs. This one's definitely probably the most juggled around set of games here, but you'll recognize some of these, and some of these are brand new, and hopefully you enjoy them as much as I do. But by all means, I'll be keen to look at your comments at the end to see what your thoughts are. So, you know the drill. My number 40 is a brand new game from, I think, Le Bois de Jeu. This was a game I think that came out, I think it was at the last Essen, or was it the Essen before? I've got a feeling it was the Essen before. And this one is a game that is either really loved, or you kind of go, meh. Mike Delisio is one of those people who loves it to bits, but the rest of the Dice Tower went meh. Here, I really love this game. I love tactical games where you have to kind of react to what's going on from each player's turn. And Tribes of the Wind is a great example of that. It looks gorgeous on the table, no doubt. And certainly that helps, but that's not the reason why it's so high up. But even though it's got an abstracted theme, I mean, it kind of looks like something out of Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, you know, that Studio Ghibli movie, but it's, you know, the theme is whatever. But it's the card play that I really like in this. Everybody's got their own set of cards in front of them, facing them with the abilities, but when you cast one of your cards for their abilities, the power level of the card is dictated by what element cards everybody has next to you and yourself. So it's not one that I recommend playing with 4 players or 5 players. Certainly the 5-player thing is dumb. But when you got 3 of you, or even 2 of you, because you use the display as a dummy deck, which works really well, it's just quite a cool system. Because I'm thinking, right, well, I could do this card here because you got a bunch of greens, you got a bunch of greens, therefore this is going to be really powerful now. Do I want to do it now? Do I need this now? I could really do with some more water, but I got no water, you got no water, and you're hogging it all. And it's like, well, I need the water in order to cast this. And this is what I mean by the tactical element, because as each player plays cards or discards half their hand in order to play a temple, suddenly the elements that they draw from the middle will suddenly have a profound effect of what you can do in your turn. It's a really cool idea and just something relatively innovative. I mean, it's borrowing a little bit from the Hanabi mechanic, but it's a mechanic I like to see in other games. And this one isn't entirely like, oh, you're not looking at something blind. No, everybody can see their own elements and their own abilities. It's just the fact that the cards that opponents have matter, so this creates a little bit of interaction. Not tons, because you are doing stuff on your own board, and it's not like I can deliberately mess you up because I don't know what abilities you've got. But certainly you might notice you're hogging a lot of one element, and at some point you need to switch. It's more that you care about what the other opponents are doing. Could it just be random with a deck, you know, an autumner doing it? Yeah, maybe. You could literally just have like a shuffled bunch of cards and randomly one comes off. I think there was an unofficial solo mode that did that in some ways. But I find this just great fun to play with 2 or 3 players. 4 if I must, 5 never, and it just surprised me. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but something about it just works. It's simple, it's gorgeous, and it's still fun.
He certainly knows how to read the wind.
My 39 has dropped 18 places from 21, no big deal. I mean, if you're in my top 50, you're already a banger of a game. This one just hasn't been played in a while, and I have this in 2 guises. I've got this in the titchy guise and also the big guise, and it varies as to which one I get played. I've kept both because one's good for travel and the other one just looks nicer, which is a phenomenal deck builder called Valley of the Kings. Now, again, you can get the big premium version like I've got here with the funky tarot cards, and it does look gorgeous, but if you are able to get one of the mini sets that are in this box, I think they're out of print, but still, if you can find one on a second-hand sale, grab one, because this holds the main game and 2 expansions in it. You know, all you got to do is chuck away the original starter cards because frankly the replacement ones are better. But yeah, I've got 2 expansions in the whole game in this one box. So for travel, this is brilliant. But this deck builder is just good, simple, honest fun. You know, you buy your cards from a pyramid that crumbles as the game goes on and replenishes. You know, it's keeping sort of with the theme. But it's one of those deck builders where you use multi-use cards. So you draw your hand of 5 and you've got to use everything in your hand. But do I use the card for its money value to buy another card? Do I use it for its ability, of which they've all got loads of different abilities that can scupper opponents or help you or let you do shenanigans all over the place? Or do I do the entomb action to get it into my tomb? And this is the other thing I love, the idea that everything you put into your deck is mostly meaningless when it comes to the end game. You've got to get it into your tomb, which is a deck sort of pile where the card is of no use to you anymore, but it's worth points, and you're going for set collection. You can see what other people are grabbing, so you know what sort of stuff to get rid of or sacrifice out of the game and such. But it's a great balance that you have to do, where you've got to think, where's the turning point in the game end timer, of which the game end timer is going to be based on what's in the middle, so it's not a linear progression. You know, at some point it's going to snowball, but do you start entombing early? Do you do it now? Do you do it later? Do you think, you know what, I'll get some really cool entomb cards and I'll just go mass on it later so I can use all these cool abilities. Oh wait, hang on, did I leave it too long? I got nothing in my tomb. This is bad, this is bad. And it leads to a good tension with the points at the end of the game. It's just really solid. It's been around for quite a while and nobody really talks about it anymore, but when I do mention it, people are very it has got its popular fans. You know, the big set is maybe you don't desperately need it, because I'm never going to play this with 5 or 6 players like it suggests. Hell, I don't even want to play the original with 4 players, it's too many. But as a 2 to 3 player game, this is just an excellent pure deck builder, and I do love me some pure deck builders.
Remember me! Remember me!
My 38 has actually gone up 12 places, which is kind of odd. I'm not entirely sure why. I feel like it should have resided back down there, but hey, this is what the statistics throw at me. This is a, well, I was about to say Vladimir Shavato, it's not. It's a Vladimir Suhi game, yeah, so they get the names right. And, you know, for some people, this designer is basically the next Jesus. You know, he can do no wrong.
And I'm his friend Jesus.
For me, he's a bit more hit and miss. There are some games from him that I love. You might hear another one on this batch of 20, in fact, soon. And there are some that I'm not a massive fan of. But this one I do really like, and I would probably be right in saying this is the most popular game he's done in recent years, and that would be, well, actually, yeah, I'm going with that. I think this is the most popular, and that is Underwater Cities. Underwater Cities, a heavy Euro theme, whatever. You're building up an underwater city with little buildings like salination plants and kelp farms and stuff, and you're building out on your player board, trying to get bonuses by covering spots and, you know, connecting up various bits. I mean, the theme is whatever. What I love about this game, though, is that the rule set is actually not that complicated. You know, the complexity comes from what you're doing in the game and trying to do well, but the rule set's actually pretty straightforward. And it's got a pretty decent iconography, intuitive iconography for the most part. There are some exceptions, but, you know, it's got text and the icon, so you can get past it either way. I love the card play system in this, though. The idea that you've got the 3 different color sections of the board, and you play the card down, and if it matches, you get to do the card as well as the location action. I believe that's how it works. I think it's location always, and the card effect if it matches. But you have to consider that maybe you don't want to play a matching color because you just need the location action, but you really want to. And when you're drawing your hand of cards, you're like, oh, I've got a green, a red and yellow. Well, I need that green for there, but hang on, I want to do 2 green actions this round. If I don't get another green, what am I supposed to use it with? And you think, I want to do that action, but I want a red. I really want to play it with a red. Do I wait? I don't know. And you've got to be able to, you've got to be willing to disregard the matching. But man, it's fulfilling when you do. And when you do, you get to trigger more effects, and it just feels satisfactory. All the cards have got all sorts of different effects. You've got these different ones in the middle for endgame scoring, which again are going to vary things. You've got objectives to gun for. The expansion improved the player boards to no end. In fact, I think the expansion is mandatory just for the player boards, because to have them dual recessed is kind of needed, because otherwise it's a bit on the fiddly side. But yeah, as engine builders go, this is something that is unique and great fun and still very complex, and with 4 players particularly, man, the tension for worker spots. There's not that many places you can go, and with 4 of you, they get used up fast. Some are more popular than others, but Yeah, you've got to think, I need to do this action now. Can I wait until my next turn? I'm not sure I can, because I'm pretty sure you're going to nab it first. Ah, but I don't want to do it in that order. It's like, ooh, such turn angst. There's not many games that can do it this well, but yeah, Underwater Cities is one of them. It's definitely a belter from him.
Look at me! I'm Dr. Zoidberg, homeowner!
37 has dropped 11 places from 26. It just hasn't been played as much, but to be fair, given how big the box is, that's not surprising. Big buck games usually have this problem, but I do make the exceptions when I can for this one, which is probably my favourite game from John DeClaire, and also my favourite. It uses this mechanic that he's kind of trademarked for now, which is the whole card crafting system. This is a very niche game called Edge of Darkness from AEG. I think you can only get it from Kickstarter, so it's, as I say, very niche and not a cheap game. But it's in a giant crate down there. I did a massive review on this several years ago, I believe, and this one just, it's a great mix of worker placement and the card crafting system with a good amount of interaction with players. The idea is that the middle row of the card, the middle row in the middle of the board has a row of the cards that come out, and some of them will be yours, some of them will be other players, and some of them will just be the neutrals. But every turn you get to advance a card, so you don't have to go out of your way to do it. Every turn you get to do it. So sweet, I get to add something cool to a card for free. But then, as you are paying your influence to buy the cards in the middle, you've got this thing of, well, I can settle with the neutral ones, that's fine. I would really like my card there because I've built this up to be really good. Problem is, it's been bought because it's a really good card and somebody else fancied buying it on their turn. So you could buy theirs, but the problem is, if you use the abilities on someone else's card that they're affiliated with, you gotta pay them money. So this is great interaction with the players where you're building up cards to be really cool, but the better you make the card, the more tempting you make it for other players to nick it. And I just find that to be really good fun. The oversized building that you put near to the side with the cubes that come out the cube tower for the combat.
That must be Lord Farquaad's castle.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
That works pretty well as well, because you've got this tense thing of, well, when is this monster going to attack? When is it going to attack, and who's it going to attack? You know, that bit is a good amount of tension. Yes, the thing is stupidly oversized and kind of unnecessary, but, you know, it looks cool on the table. But yeah, they probably could have done it in an easier way. But all these things together just make for, oh yeah, I forgot the worker placement side, yeah. All the different locations around the edge, you send your agents, and depending what agents you've got where, allow you to do cool shenanigans. And there's so many of these now. I mean, I've got, I think, every expansion for it, so I can pretty much just cherry pick which locations I fancy, or better still, just do one of the scenarios in the book. And it even has a really good solo mode. The solo mode is not that difficult to pilot, and gives a good, it doesn't quite replicate a multiplayer game, but it does a pretty damn good job at it. This one is just such a cool system. Maybe the fact that it is so innovative and so different is one reason I gravitated to it a lot, but it is expensive. It's not easy to get hold of. It takes up a lot of space. It's got a decent amount of setup, and it certainly is, you know, a niche game. But man, it just ticks a lot of the boxes of what I want in a unique, innovative, you know, complex Euro. Taking a system that I already liked, card crafting, and doing something cool with it. People have asked me about Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning I just found, Dead Reckoning's fine, but it's very swingy. It's got a lot of luck in it in various places, and it takes probably longer than it takes to play Edge of Darkness. I mean, Edge of Darkness is not a short game, but I've had Dead Reckoning games go on longer, and it really shouldn't. But like I say, the game's still fine. Maybe I just need to give it some more tries. But yeah, Edge of Darkness, still really love it. My number 36, gone up 19 places from 55. Again, I'm not entirely sure why, but maybe recent plays. It could be actually, because recent plays of this have made me appreciate it more, mainly because the last expansion that came out for this was utter garbage. I gave it a 3 out of 10 on the review. It was called Fanatic Fiends. And yes, as the debate will always continue, which is better out of Agricola and Caverna, I'm sorry, Caverna is better. End of.
I'll beg to differ, sir.
I still respect Agricola, but Agricola is too restrictive and too punishing and hyper-dependent on getting kids. You don't get kids in Agricola, you're done. You know, you can survive in Caverna without getting every single child out, and certainly without getting them, like, insanely early. But in Agricola, if you don't get the kids out, you are screwed. And I hate the fact that you can't specialize. Caverna fixes these problems. I wish it had the occupations, although again, the occupations in Agricola are kind of swingy and unbalanced. But with Caverna, you have to look at all those buildings, which I do like having the options. But yeah, it does cause a bit of an AP nightmare for some. But I love the fact that this is build a farm indoors in the cave or outdoors in the fields, how you want it. Do I want to be king of the sheep? Yes, well then I'm gonna have like loads of pastures with loads of sheep. Am I just gonna stay in my cave and never go outside? Well, fine, I'm gonna do that. I am albino dwarfs with 6 kids and all the donkeys and all the mines harvesting the gems. There's loads of different ways that you can play this, and I love the expansion Forgotten Folk, which gives you a race that kind of does sort of constrain how you would play the game, but there's so many of them that you've got a lot of different ways to do it, and it's actually not bad to give to a first-time player, because if it already constrains saying, right, if you're going to play the mountain dwarfs, you kind of suck outside. Okay, they don't need to worry too much about outside actions anymore. They can focus on the indoor ones. It almost feels like there's a little bit less for that player to think about. It's a heavy game and it's complex at the end of the day, so I wouldn't necessarily put too many people in front of it. And certainly, I've put the 6 and 7 player component boards in the spare storage because I will refuse pathologically to play this with any more than 5. In fact, even 5 requires it to be everybody knows the game inside out. But yeah, I mean, I've played this solo, I played this with 3 or 4 players, fine, particularly with friends of mine, and we like to throw in the Forgotten Folk expansion. Do not get the Fanatic Fiends one. The Fanatic Fiends one, if anything, tries to bring it a little bit closer to Agricola, but in a more fiddly and weird swingy way. It is garbage, I hate it, so do not put that one on. But yeah, Caverna, I still love it, and I do think it is better than Agricola. Sorry, folks.
Kill him. Kill him now.
35 has dropped 23 places from 12, actually. This is quite a bit of a drop. Not to say that I don't like the game, although it certainly must be said that it's probably dropped a place in terms of how much my ranking of this publisher's particular games. We've already had a couple on this list already. We've had Scholars and we've had Raiders. This is, spoiler alert, my 3rd favourite now, Garfield game, and that is Architects of the West Kingdom. This was like my 12 before, and I still think this is a fantastic Euro game, worker placement, but a couple of things have hurt it recently. The 2nd expansion was nowhere near as good as the first one, and if anything, the 2nd expansion is a bit of too fiddly and maybe too much faff for what it is. The problem is, I now have the playmat, and I love the playmat, but the playmat has the 3rd expansion built on the end, so you kind of have to ignore bits of it, which I always find grating. But this one was improved by that expansion with the solo mode, because the solo mode before wasn't that great. The 2nd expansion really improves the solo mode and makes it one that I will actually happily play. But this one is a very simple worker placement game. I mean, you build buildings and you contribute to the cathedral and you put your workers on spaces of which the space gets more powerful as you put more workers out. That's cool. Nice and simple, nice and easy. I can teach this to pretty much anybody, and I have played 6-player games of this with the 1st expansion with new players and still got the game done in about 90 minutes to 2 hours with the teach. That's pretty good going for a 6-player worker placement game. But I love the interaction with this, where the workers can be arrested by players. You can go to the town centre and nick meeples off other places and dump them in the prison in order to get money, which is a good thing to do, because money is money, it's useful. But you obviously don't want to let somebody get really powerful in a particular action space, so at some point somebody needs to come and arrest them, and some will do it more than others. So there's this great little push and pull thing of meeples going on the board and coming off and getting dumped in prison. I need to go fetch them in prison, otherwise I'm going to get penalised later. And the timing of when you do things, it's just a really cool, and again, innovative twist on worker placement, because let's face it, it's very difficult to be innovative with worker placement anymore. This game did it, and it did such a good job. The 1st expansion I think is a must buy. I have done, I don't know if I've reviewed, I think I've reviewed Works of Wonder, so by all means check that video out, but I definitely reviewed Age of Artisans, and so check them out if you want to see more details. But Artisans is pretty much an auto include with what it does to fix the base game in a couple of ways, but just the cool stuff it adds for relatively little extra complexity. This one is still really solid. I mean, out of the Garfield games, some people say I play this with less players, I play this with more. This is one you want to play with more. 3 players works just fine with this. 4, 5, and 6 works pretty well. So if you want a Garfield game that will play a lot of players, Architects is the one I recommend. 34 dropped 5 places from 29. Whatever, it still remained constant, although if it doesn't hurry up and bring out the expansion, it's gonna fall. I'm just saying, Ludi Creations, hurry up. This game is a really solid one, although play with 3 players max. Do not play with 4 or 5 under any circumstances, but On the Underground is a really fun game with taking that lazy passenger and trying to build your route connections or the metro connections in London or Berlin in this particular set, and trying to find a way for the passenger to ride your train network more than the other players. It's really tense, the scores are tight, it's very smooth, the rules are dirt simple, and as much as I sometimes, in jest, give David Turksey a little bit of crap for, making the most complex solo modes imaginable.
Dear God, what is it like in your funny little brains? It must be so boring.
He co-designed or fully designed the solo mode for On the Underground as a little mini expansion. If you can get it, get it. It's a really good solo mode. You essentially you don't have an AI, you just have like a preset layout, which effectively is the opponent, but you have to try and overtake the point value of that opponent before the whole timer runs out. It's a really cool system with multiple different map configurations you can do, but for a David Turksey solo, it's like one of the simplest AIs I've ever had to pilot. It's like completely outside the norm for him, and it works really well. But this game looks gorgeous on the table. I can teach it to you in about 5 minutes. It's such simple rules, and yet it's got a good amount of thinkiness and a lot of different opportunistic tactical choices, because you don't really have a strategy in this game. You're trying to build a decent network, but you got to react to where the passenger is and where they want to go. And again, I love these games that throw a tactical nuance into it. Strategy games I like, fine, but it's with strategy games you have that thing of, right, I'm going to do this for the whole game, and if it doesn't work out, oh dear, I'm screwed. And you tend to find out throughout the game that that's a problem. But tactical games keep you on the edge. They make you think, well, I didn't start off too well, but hang on, I just pulled a couple of belters here, that's great. And so those ones I enjoy more. Will you hurry up and bring Paris and New York out like ASAP? I think I backed it. I think I'll get it from Games Law when it's done, and this probably keep it in the same position, but hasn't been brought out in a while, and if you don't hurry up with that expansion, I'm going to get annoyed, okay? Make that your incentive. Hurry up and bring it out.
I mean, how hard can it be?
My 33 has increased 8 places from 41, which is surprising, but again, that's how the statistics go. This is super gritty. This is not one you want to play if you are faint of heart or are easily triggered by some of the subject matters that are in this. But I love dark, gritty games. Tainted Grail, I love the dark grittiness of that. And as much as that's my go-to extended length campaign one, this has probably increased because the last time I played this with a 3-act campaign from an expansion, it was one of the best experiences I've had in games. This War of Mine. This one is dark and dismal. I mean, you are basically survivors in a war-torn landscape in somewhere in, I can't remember if it's fictional or not, but basically somewhere, I think, in Poland. And the idea is that you are trying your best to just survive. You're not trying to meet objectives per se. Some scenarios may have an objective or two, but for the most part, and the main struggle is you're just struggling to keep yourself fed, keep yourself with water, try to keep yourself sane because you just easily get depressed. You got to go scavenge for stuff, and you are really on a knife's edge between success and failure, and you will fail this game for the most part. But the stories that you get from the cards and the booklet that's come in, they're really well written, really thematic and atmospheric. And you play this with the soundtrack from the video game, which is also really cool. It just really sets the mood. But Days of the Siege, which I think is the expansion, introduced a 3-act campaign. Oh my god, it is so good. Wonderful storytelling, great mechanics with, the map that can change as you do certain things, lots of different branching paths, a way to finish an act with 2 different paths so that you go into the second act in a different way depending how you acted or who you interacted with. If you can get that expansion for this War of Mine and you're a fan of the game, believe me, you will not regret the purchase.
Shut up and take my money.
32 has dropped 24 places. This was my number 8 game last year, so it's not in the top 10 anymore. And a lot of that, I think, is down to bulk. This is quite a bulky game to get out. However, I was chatting with my friends about this last night, actually. We were talking about the massive, Eldritch Horror and Arkham Horror 2nd Edition crate I've got up there, and how because it's in a massive crate and it's just so bloated, I just don't feel like playing it anymore. This one is still bloated to a sense because I've got the expansions of it out, but there's no campaign, it's scenario based, and because it's app assisted, this is actually one of the easier Arkham Horror games that's in a big box to get out. That is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. It's not been played in a while, so it has dropped down to my top 10, but I still feel like I want to play this at some point soon, and because it's got the app. All I need to do is basically decide on the scenario, get the initial pieces out, and the app does all the rest. And suddenly I'm away, and it could be a 60-minute game, it could be a 4-hour game. You know, the scenarios do vary a bit in length. I don't think I've even played them all. I think there's probably a few that I have not played yet, so yeah, I feel like I really want to get this game out at some point soon, and that's the appeal of something that I rate highly and think is one of the best Arkham Horror games that's out there. Now, a little caveat with this one though. I've got a suitcase up there full of stuff, and I've got that box there. I have a feeling that this box has one use only: to store all the miniatures, which I will never ever use again. The miniatures in this game were crap. What? They didn't look very good, and they had to balance very precariously on those little like plastic tiles, and then you had to put the tile for the monster with the stats into a slot, which was covered up by the monster and covered up all the artwork as well. And if you've got all the expansions, when you get a monster appear and you have to search for your entire collection to find the right monster, oh my god, you want to burn the game at that point.
I feel like I'm gonna break this damn thing.
Forget the miniatures. They're in there, I don't care. You know, just use the tiles with the cool artwork and the stats on them. Trust me, it works a lot better. But for atmosphere, for good storytelling, for one of the best examples of app integration in a board game, Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition is a tough one to beat. My 31 has gone up 9 places, and this one actually I don't think is a surprise. I think this one probably should be on the way up. I'm surprised it didn't even get into my top 20, frankly. But this one I actually was afraid wasn't on the list at first, because I was thinking, where is it? I couldn't find it, and it's like, oh god, did I forget about it? It's like, nope, we're good. This is one of the Dixit style games. I love the Dixit style games with these cards, with the pictures you have to interpret, but this is possibly my favorite. No, it's not my favorite game that utilizes these. It's probably easily my second favorite, and that is Mysterium. Although I suppose we need to be more specific and say Mysterium Park, because I do own Mysterium, but I don't know how much longer for, because I said this on my recent video I did for the Rate My Shelf, that the problem with Mysterium is that it's got a long setup, you've got the big DM screen, it takes longer to play the game because you've got to play 3 rounds, but you get more variation with the characters and the scenarios, and it does look cool. And those clairvoyance tokens are a bit annoying. So there's things that hurt it, but I still love the game. Mysterium Park came out, of which I have done a video review of this, you can check it out, where it basically does exactly what Mysterium does, except it condenses it down to 2 different phases, 6 rounds max in the game, with the finale if you can do it, but much quicker to set up, much quicker to play, and much more compact. I do hate the fact that it's solely to do with the circus theme, but I can get over that. And it's fantastic. It's like, maybe I would actually prefer to play Mysterium Park all the time than Mysterium. But man, for crying out loud, Libellude, why have you not released more sets for this? You could easily do Mysterium School, Mysterium like Camp, Mysterium Church, whatever. You could do all these different settings with all these different cards and characters and stuff, and you would be printing money. I would buy every single one of them, but you haven't. Why not? But I love this one. I've talked about it a lot in other like videos and stuff. You can check out my Rate My Shelf for a much more detailed review of it. But yeah, I love this game. The pictures, the being the ghost, the tension with like, oh, shut up, you're telling the wrong thing, that's not good enough, and trying to get to the end, working as a co-op. Oh, I love this game. But it's not my favorite Dixit game. So what is?
When will then be now? Soon.
30 has jumped up 8 places from 38. Again, kind of surprising. I say, there's been a few ups and downs in this particular section of the list, and some I can explain and some I can't. This one has not been played for a while, but again, I talked about it on my Rate My Shelf video recently, and no, I am not going to get the dice so that I can do another one of those memes. You know, we know what I'm like with the dice. Yes, this one is Seasons. Seasons is still a fantastic engine builder tableau game. I mean, this idea of drafting the cards at the start of the game in order to dictate, I'm going to unlock these early, I'm going to unlock these late, this is kind of the engine I want to build, this is the strategy I'm going for. But then having the variable timer, having the idea that, you know, alright, so depending on which dice get drafted, with the one that remains, which I love in games, this mechanic that the one you don't draft has a profound effect. You know, this one accelerating the timer, so you're thinking, well, hang on, well, that means we're going to still be in winter, probably. That means we're rolling the blue dice, I'm not going to get forest mana very easily in winter, and it's just, those little aspects just make this game. It looks gorgeous, the dice are addictive as hell, as you have seen me play with them a lot.
Lord help me, what?
you know, with the expansions, I don't necessarily use their full-on mechanics, but I just love throwing in the cards and just having a big mix of stuff. It leads to some interesting little paths to victory or some good tactical plays. It's one that just doesn't get a lot of talk anymore. You know, I mean, it came, it went, it's gone now. I mean, I don't think you can get it anymore. I think it's out of print. But it's just so good. I really enjoy this one, and I wish it did come back. You know, they don't have to necessarily 2.0 it. I mean, to be fair, if you did make a deluxe version of it, it already looks gorgeous. But if there was a deluxe version of it, oh, I'd buy it in seconds. But it's just really good. I think it's on Board Game Arena. I think you can play it on there, so by all means give it a try. But yeah, I enjoy this one. I wish there was a solo mode, but you can't have everything. This one is still great fun to play, 2, 3 or 4 players, and you know, for an engine builder game, which we've seen in the dime of a dozen, this one is still pretty solid. Check out the Rate My Shelf video for a bit more detail. 29 has dropped a place. Oh no, it means it's garbage! It's garbage! No. This is a 3-hour-odd Euro game, worker placement, but again, it does some interesting things with the worker placement, and this one pretty much never gets talked about. It released an Essen a few years ago. It was from Quinid Games, which don't tend to get a huge amount of buzz in people's minds. I can't think of any particular Quinid game that does get a ton of love. And this one, I think, really should have got more love. Yes, it's a little bit lacking at 2 and 3 players. I will admit the player scaling's not perfect. But at 4 players, Terra Mara is a brilliant Euro. Yeah, this one has the different spots you go to for a typical resource management, but I love the way that when you send the worker out, if they go further down in order to get the more lucrative spaces, it takes several rounds for them to come back to you. So you have to, you know, decide, you know, am I going to go for these massive spaces at the expense of not having the worker? But you've then got the 3 different tracks to deal with, the military one, the caravan one, and the water one, and each one gives you some cool benefit. Like military will let you break tiebreakers and like go to different spots. The caravan lets you, you know, when the caravan reaches a certain point as the rounds go on, the tiles flip over and new action spots come along where you must have traveled far enough to get to them. And the water one, if you want to get these cool cards at the bottom for special abilities and points, well, then you need to have sailed as far along the track as you can so that you can grab them before other players do. It's just a very cool, you know, system. Not the smoothest ever, because as I say, the rulebook could be a little bit better, and at 2 and 3 it's a little clunky with the setup. But I still really love this one. It looks gorgeous, having Michael Menzel's artwork on the board. I mean, whenever Michael Menzel does a board, it just looks amazing. All the little Easter eggs he throws in there. But yeah, I mean, you've got asymmetric player powers, you've got all the different cards that can come out along the bottom. The tile setup with the board can lead to some different games where some resources are more scarce than others. This one really needed a bit more buzz. It wasn't advertised that well, you know, it was at Essen, it was demoed, but other than that, I don't think it's really talked about much. I don't think I've seen that many reviews for it either. Did I even do a review for it? I'm not entirely sure I did. I'd have to look that one up, but yeah, honestly, if you get a chance to try Terra Mara, by all means do. It's still on my shelf, and I still really enjoy it. 28, risen 7 places from 35. Some of that is probably just the way that this part of the list is jostled, but maybe some of it is the recent plays I had. Well, I say recent, it was a couple of handycons ago, but I remember playing this with the Cardboard Champions. There are a couple who do, they're a couple based in the UK, reasonably locally, and they do like written blog content, and I think a podcast, not sure, but certainly written blog content for Marvel Champions, which is what this game is. And we played a 3-player game, and we used the library copy, which had nothing but the starter set. It was just a core set. It'd been a while since I played multiplayer, and these two clearly knew more than I did about the game, like rules-wise and like off the bat and tactics. So we just played a 3-player game using starter people. I think I was Captain Marvel. What was it? Captain Marvel. I think we had maybe an Iron. We had a She-Hulk. Who was the 3rd one? I can't remember, but whatever. We played against Green Goblin, the 2nd version of Green Goblin. It's one of the hardest villains in the game, and we managed to beat him, you know, with those 3 characters. It was, you know, tug and push and pull at times, but we managed to beat them together, and it was just one of the most enjoyable Marvel Champion games I've had.
Let's just take a day. You ever tried shawarma?
I still own, you know, a lot of it. I mean, I've got every set I think there is, and I think I've got every character, although I keep telling myself I shouldn't buy anymore because this game doesn't get played enough to warrant having this many, but it's Marvel, and it's miles better than Marvel Legendary was, you know, which I desperately need to sell out of that box out there, you know, and it's just a good, solid game that even though you have to deck build, there's not a huge amount of deck building compared to other games because half the deck is pre-built based on which character you pick, and then you've just got to fill in the blanks. And most of the time you have to pick like one aspect. So you've got your character, then you've got all the preset stuff the character has to have, and then let's say I'm going with protection. Well, now I can only deck build from the green cards and neutrals. I don't even look at the other colours. There's a couple of heroes that go beyond that, and I don't play those ones because that's a bit too much for the deck building lack of deck building mind I have. But yeah, I've had some great games with this, some thematic setups. I particularly loved my Kang one I did. Kang's one of the most enjoyable scenarios I think this game has. It's long and certainly a bit more rules intensive, but man, it's a fun scenario. Certainly probably does a much better job with Kang than the movies did. But yeah, well, I don't know. Loki did a pretty good job with Kang. Certainly watch that series. That's really good. But yeah, I still really enjoy this one. The next one, was it Age of Apocalypse or something? I may still get that set just because I've never actually watched any TV shows with Apocalypse in. The movie for X-Men Apocalypse was crap. But it was bland. It was really bland. But I never actually watched any of the cartoon X-Men series where Apocalypse turned up. Something tells me I should probably watch some of the old cartoons, like maybe the old X-Men cartoon. I watched it a bit as a kid, but I don't remember a lot about it. I just remember it being awesome. And I think you can watch it on Disney Plus now. I'll have to check. But yeah, Apocalypse is a cool villain, so maybe I will get the next one from it. But the problem I have with this game is that power creep is starting to set in from the villains. The villains are starting to get to the point where they are stupendously hard, particularly if you play in campaign mode. In fact, I refuse to play this in campaign mode now. I get the big box, I separate out all the cards, I play each villain individually, and I leave it at that. The campaigns are just too punishing and too hard. But that means it could be on the way down. I know it's risen 7 places now, but will it stay this high in the future? I'm going to have to play some more games of it and find out.
Big monster!
27 jumped up 4 places, and this is no surprise, it's still a solid hit with me. It's a pure deck builder, but one with a twist, and I do love those innovative twists. And this one never gets talked about. Oh my god, I think I'm like the only person who champions this game, and that is Runestones from Queen Games. Have you heard of this one? Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised, because the publisher does a piss poor job of actually advertising this. But I will sing the praises with or without the expansions, although to be fair, I throw in both expansions to an extent anyway. But Runestones is a pure deck builder. Straightforward. It looks gorgeous on the table, you collect different colour gems, you change them in for artifacts, and these artifacts you play in sets for victory points. Okay, that sounds pretty generic. Here's the twists. Firstly, every time you trade in the artifacts, you trade in more, you get more points, but then you also get the cool runestone power, which because I've got both expansions, I just draw 8 at random out of a bag, and it's cool. But it gives you a special ability for the rest of the game, and you can have up to 4 of these. So do you get a lot of points but not many abilities, or lots of abilities but not many points? But on top of that, I love the way the card system works. You play 2 cards for the abilities, and when you play these 2 cards, the one with the higher value on it is trashed out of your deck, and effectively the game. So it forces you to buy more cards. But how long do you wait? Do you give yourself a deck of only 4 or 5 cards and just rinse and repeat those? But you can't, because you're going to trash one, so you're going to have to buy more. When do you buy more? Do you have a bulky deck instead? And, which cards do I play? The starter cards will go like that, but when you start playing cards you've bought, it's like, I really like that card, but if I play it, it's gone. Oh, do I get rid of it, or do I play something else? Maybe I could play this one on top, and then I get to keep this dragon card for another time. Very simple rule set, looks beautiful, and granted, the first expansion is easy to include if you include the whole lot. The second expansion, I'm not a massive fan of that familiar board. I actually generally leave out the familiar board. I don't think it adds enough to be worthwhile. But the extra runestone powers, shove in. One of them's a bit unbalanced, so I just leave that one out. But out of the other 18, I can use 17 different powers and have a great time. Honestly, this one is just a really solid game, but it is so unheard of, and pretty much every time I bring this out, nobody's heard of it. I teach it to brand new players, and they enjoy it. It's one that I do like to bring out quite often because it doesn't take very long, and it's a simple teach. But man, a cool, innovative twist on deck building, which we don't see very often, and it should get more praise for that. My 26 has gone up 10 places, which is kind of surprising given that I haven't played this for a while. But again, I guess it's just the way the cookie crumbles. Now, I mentioned recently about Vladimir Suchy. And I said that he's very hit and miss. Some designs I like, some designs I don't. I was very meh on, what was that one? The one with the rats, Messina or something. Didn't particularly like Woodcraft. I don't really like Shipyard, you know, and I've already said my piece on Evacuation. Check out my review for that, where I didn't give it the most stellar rating ever, much to the annoyance of some people.
We have such sights to show you.
But this is my favorite Vladimir Suhi game. Definitely, I think, my favorite one. And this is the one that isn't from Delicious Games. This is the Czech Game Editions one that he did, which is Pulsar 2849, a pure, themeless point salad. And yet I love it, and I think a lot of it is just down to the cool way that you do the mechanics. I mean, everything requires a dice in order to use it for the action, but how you get the dice and all the options that you have make this a game I love. And the fact that it's like a 90-minute game for the most part, I mean 2 hours tops with AP players, but you're talking that you could get this done in 90 minutes, it's a smooth game, the rules are straightforward, yeah, it's dry as a bone, but you've got a lot of different options each round. But grabbing the dice is already half the puzzle, because it's like, well, you know, based on what ones were rolled, if I take the 6, I can do something cool, but then I've got to muck up my turn order or not get a lot of those engineering cubes for the scoring. It's like, do I really want to take the 6 then? Maybe I should take something a little bit lower and just make do with it, but I really want that 6, so I don't know. And, you know, that's already a tense choice. But then once you've got your 2 dice, it's only 2 dice you have to put out. The turns aren't that long. But do I get one of a multitude of technologies? Do I grab a transmitter array and try and pair those up? Do I fly around the board and grab bonuses here? It is pure point salad madness, and it is just victory points spewing out of every orifice. But yeah, it's a brilliant game, and it doesn't get a lot of buzz. You know, I know, some people like Tom Vaz are massive fans. There are some people that I know that really like it, and some that haven't played it or just found it okay. But yeah, I really love this one. You know, considering everybody goes mad about Vladimir Suhi for a lot of his Euro games, the fact that this one tends to get left behind, and yet some of the other ones that I don't like tend to get mentioned more, you know, but I still really enjoyed this one. Give this one a try. You want just a straight up point salad with a lot of cool options and some little innovative twists, then by all means, grab this one and check it out.
I don't think any of us expected him to say that.
25, we're at the new one. Yes, this is the second of the debuts on my top 100, and this is a very recent game. I only reviewed it a few months ago. Came from the recent Essen. It was a surprise hit for me. I never thought I would like it as much as I did. Some people were very surprised that I gave it a 10 out of 10, but I stand by it, because I mean, the lowest this game could ever go is a 9. But I think just for the fact that it ticks all the boxes, easy to play, quick to play, simultaneous turns, well produced, well stored with the insert that allows you to have everything set up, cool decisions to make, multiple things to consider with every choice of tile. Yeah, this is easily in my top 100, and that is Art Society. Art Society just did a solid job. There's very little I can say negative about it, and most of the negatives I would say about it are niggles, so this one had to deserve a high rating. Now, you know, do I want to play it multiple times in a row? Maybe not. Hence, it's probably not in my top 10 games. But this one is just really good fun. Simple concept. I take a bunch of art paintings, lay them out, I decide what shapes I want, and then we bid with a simultaneous bid from all players with a finite number of cards in order to decide which art tile I want. And then it's a kind of spatial awareness thing to put it on your board, but it's not polyomino madness. Everything's a square or a rectangle. It's just how big or how long or stretched it is. And you can fill up little gaps with other little decor tokens you can get. But I love this one. You know, it's so easy to teach, but it still has a decent amount of depth for being fairly simplistic rules. You've got 4 different things to think of when you choose a tile. Check out my review for a bit more detail on that. But even at the end, when you're sort of trying to think, well, hang on, if I don't take that tile, that's the one that's left over, and it's a yellow 9. That means the yellow, the prestige counter is going to go up 9 spaces, and suddenly it's now overtaking green and red for, being worth more points. I don't have a yellow. Maybe I should just take a yellow so that it doesn't propel that one, but then I really wanted that green. I don't know, and those sort of decisions make for a game with a decent amount of depth, but again, simple, quick, simultaneous. I mean, there's one phase of the game that is not simultaneous, and it doesn't take that long for people to get past. Other than that, everybody is engaged. This one was a major surprise for me, because I looked at it on the table and I thought, well, that looks cool, but I'm not expecting much. Wow, was I blown away by this one, and I like it when I'm proved wrong. I like it when a game is like, you know, I mean, not so much when I think I'm going to love a game and it turns out to be trash, but hey, at least it's something different. But when I don't think a game is necessarily going to surprise me that much, or like, you know, go, oh yeah, I think it will be fine, but not amazing, and then it blows my mind, oh man, it's a good feeling.
Oh God! Oh Jesus God! Oh Mary, Mother of Jesus, Jesus of Nazareth!
My 24 has stayed exactly where it is. 24. It's not moved, and no surprise, because I still like to bring this one out every now and again at conventions. I still take it to occasional game nights. It doesn't always get played, but certainly it's in the bag. This is another deck builder, but again, deck builders that are pure with a twist. This is, I mean, do I need to like play this record enough times here? You know, change the record, man. I can't. Because deck builders that are pure with twists are ones that are really going to gravitate to me, and Fort is no exception. I'm not the biggest fan of Root. You know, everybody goes on about Root when it comes to later games. Root is fine, I give it respect, it's got one of the best apps out there, I'll give it that, for learning the game. I mean, hell, don't learn the game from the rulebook, just give somebody £5 and tell them to buy the app, it's a lot better. But Fort is their game that I love the most. I mean, this is a great thematic deck builder. You don't often get thematic deck builders, but basically you're American kids, you know, playing like, kind of like Recess, and you're building forts. And the idea is that when you play a kid card, it has a public and a private action. So, you know, there's a little bit of interaction there, and obviously you're engaged on other players' turns. But on top of that, you only play one card from your hand. You boost it with other cards of the same suit. So there's an aspect of, not quite trick-taking, but, you know, an aspect of card management there. But the thematic stuff is great, particularly when you throw in the Dogs and Cats expansion, which I always throw in. Because the cards that you don't play in a turn go in front of your board and can be recruited by other players. If you don't play with the kid, they throw a strop on and go, well, screw you then, and go, you know, like a Cartman.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. But Cartman, we're trying to, screw you guys,
Go off somewhere and they can go to somebody else's deck. You might be able to get them back, but somebody might decide, you know what, that card suits me better. And the Dogs and the Cats, don't play with the dog, goes to a different player. Like, you know, at the end of the round. Cats meet the condition, cat comes over to you. Great, gives me an ability and can score me more points. As soon as somebody else meets the condition, cat buggers off and goes to them.
Oh, he sounds dreamy.
You know, cats will do that. It's very tricky for a deck builder to ever have theme. I mentioned things like Valley of the Kings, and you've got things like Dominion and stuff. Yeah, they don't have theme. I mean, Valley of the Kings has a tiny bit, but not that much. But I can explain a lot of this game using thematic elements, and for a deck builder to do that, that is pretty damn impressive in my books, because if you want to try and think to yourself a decent list of thematic deck builders, proper thematic deck builders, guarantee you that's a pretty small list. But Fort does it, and yet everybody goes on about Root and doesn't talk about Fort. I'm sorry, Fort's miles better.
That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard, you imbecile.
23 has dropped 4 places. I just haven't played it in a while, but it's still a really solid game. I still play this every now and again on Board Game Arena. You know, it's not often I get the big box down there out, because I don't really get to play with the expansions, and I didn't back the new 4th edition, whatever it is now that they've done, the ultimate version of this. But I still really love this game. I'll pretty much only play it 2 players. 3 if you push me, but 4, no way, even with the team variant. Innovation is a brilliant 2-player card game for me. This very abstracted technological sort of engine builder game where it's very tactical. You can't strategize in this because you draw a different tech and it's like, oh, that gives me that ability to do, ooh, and you start creating these janky combos and janky turns. But that's what the game is. You level up through the different technological ages and they get more powerful and powerful, but you're trying to meet either an immediate victory condition on one of the end cards, end up with the most points by the time the game ends, or get a bunch of these like ages dominated, like, you know, basically do better at them than other players. And I love the fact that when you go through these different techs, you just create these cruel turns of janky combos. Yes, there's a bit of a random element to it with the luck of the draw, and that can be a little bit annoying, but I've had games where I've been like 5-1 down on the dominations, and it's like, I'm gonna lose this game no matter what, and by some weird combo that I managed to pull, I was able to get it so that the game ended by a different means, at which point I had slightly more points than the opponent. I win. When you get to do stuff like that, oh my word, is it fulfilling. But not a lot of people talk about this one anymore, and granted, I haven't really played a lot with the expansions in it. I mean, Echoes of the Past is a great expansion, but the more expansions you add, the more complexity it has. And this is a game that I don't know anybody else who plays it. Therefore, I'm playing it on Board Game Arena, and suddenly I'm the noob because most people on Board Game Arena have played this game to death and will absolutely mother me. Perhaps I should play it with lesser challenged people and put the timer on much. I don't know, but like I say, you can play it so quick on Board Game Arena, and you know, when the new edition comes out, maybe I'll consider whether it replaces the other one, but I can't see it doing so. I don't think there's enough changes. But yeah, innovation's just really cool, and I get why some people might hate it like crazy, but I really love it. 2 more to go. I'm actually surprised this isn't in my top 20, but I don't know, better luck next year. It's certainly on the climb. It's gone up 3 places, and I think maybe it's just a little bit on the bulky side, but man, do I love it. Solo, 2, 3, or 4 player, though more players means more time. I throw in a lot of the expansion elements, the mini and the big ones, although playing with all expansions is not recommended. But in terms of, again, unique, innovative, thematic Euros. Oh, Pursuit of Happiness by Artipia Games is one to put on the benchmark levels. This one is fantastic. You are basically playing the game of life as a Euro game. That's exactly how you describe this one. So, okay, I decide I want to grow a bonsai tree, take up karate, go on a diet, write a play, direct the play, star in the play, go on an environmental protest, start up a biker gang. I fancy buying a house, buying a car, owning a tortoise, maybe a little ant, take a job, I fancy being a waiter, or a chef, or a CEO, or the president, a spaceman, and Judy looks pretty nice, but then I quite like Katie, but then Jane's a redhead. I do like the name Lisa though.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
You can do whatever the hell you like in this game and create your own story. The options are endless, and they all feel cool and fulfilling, and as soon as you play this game, you just get into the theme and you start bantering, making jokes about what players are doing and how stupid their life's gone, and everything works thematically. The game itself is thematic. Throw in the community expansion. Okay, so these are little errands that you can do for your little community. You get more popular, which gets you more points and allows you to do more stuff like walk the dog, or do a little food fair or something, or host a sports day. The stuff is great from a thematic standpoint. The rules are not complex, and the big box certainly helped with a better rule book, because once you've got a lot of the mini expansions, you've got rule sheets everywhere. It's nice that it's all condensed. But that big box is jam-packed full of the deluxe components. Thank you, Artipia, for sending me those, by the way. I do appreciate it. And all the expansions to date. I love this game. I'm actually kind of sad it's not in my top 20. Maybe that needs to change next year, but I think mainly just because it is quite a big box to bring out, so it doesn't necessarily hit the table as much as I would like, but it's got a very easy solo mode in it, so maybe I'm making excuses. I should find time for this one.
Do it! Do it, do it, do it!
21, down 8 places from 13. Whatever. It's still a game I really like. It's just not probably going to meet top 10. And we're back on the Garfield train again. Yes, if you haven't got sick and tired of me talking about Garfield games, then, well, tough is my list. But this is now my second favourite Garfield games, and certainly previously it was Architects of the West Kingdom. Actually, no, for a while Architects was my favourite, and then it became my second favourite, and now it's kind of my third. This one, though, has risen to be my second favourite, and it's pretty much going to stay there because I don't think it's ever going to top my favourite. This one is Viscounts of the West Kingdom. Viscounts of the West Kingdom is the third one in the West Kingdom trilogy, and it's a rondel mechanic, but I love the way that you've got 4 very distinct paths to victory you can follow, and it's kind of a deck builder, but not quite. But you basically, I love what, with all these Garfield games, I love the fact you've got all these different characters with different abilities that you can sort of decide on the tactical basis, oh, I quite like you and I quite like you. Love those in the Garfield game series. Well, this one's another similar deal, because you have your starter deck, but then you can hire more apprentices to your deck that have cool bonuses, or you can just dismiss them straight away for their bonuses. And it's cool that you've got this deck with a little conveyor belt in front of you, so that you place the character down, and depending on where it is on the belt, or whether it drops off or gets played, it has some other cool ability. I've got both expansions for this. They are very easy to include, although for new players, especially if you've got 4 of you, it might take a while if you throw everything in, but it's still a really solid expansion to throw in, because you've got more interesting player powers and other options for points. But this is a very unique game, even for the Garfield game series, and it just, again, innovative game, something different. I mean, what else would you compare to a game like this? It's not easy to find one, other than other Garfield games, I guess. But I still really enjoy this. I mean, we almost played it last night. We were contemplating between this, another game, and Great Western Trail New Zealand, and we voted on Great Western Trail New Zealand in the end because I wanted to play it another time, and the other three really like it. But yeah, Viscounts comes up a lot in our, should we play this game or not? Because the rest of us quite like it as well. But it isn't my favourite Garfield game. So which one could that be? Well, you're going to have to find out in a different video because that is it. Yep, that is the next batch of 20. So we're up to the top 20 games. These are, I mean, we've already crept into the ones that I vote a 10 out of 10. All of these are 10 out of 10s. These are games that I just love to play. Will happily bring out at a moment's notice if I can. They don't necessarily get played all the time, but I'm always wanting to play them. And it does vary, but whew, yeah, I love these games and I will sing the praises of them any day. But next two videos will be two separate batches of 10, so I can talk a little bit more perhaps about those ones, and mainly because I just don't want to do the final 20 best games that I have in a batch of 20. I just don't feel like doing it that way. I want to be able to talk a decent amount about some of these games, and I feel doing them in batches of 10 for these 20, especially as I think most people are actually like, oh, has he finally got to the top 20 now? Oh, I might actually tune in now. There's going to be that kind of mentality from some people. So yep, 2 more videos to go, and man, can I not wait to talk about these games. These games, I mean, I've already talked about some belters on this list, but these ones coming up, oh god, I love them. As much as people give me grief for being the curmudgeon of the internet and like, you don't like any games, you just want to rag on everything, it's like, yeah, these games I do love. I do love games, people. I just don't love every game. Not everything is awesome, so get off my back. But, we'll have to wait a little bit for that, because if I'm able to edit this before I go to Iceland for Hilmar's game retreat, he very kindly invited me to that. If I'm lucky enough to edit this in advance, then you'll have to wait until I get back from Iceland before I can do the next 2. Man, I've been so busy these last couple of months. I mean, come on, blimey. Mum's birthday took up a whole weekend. HandyCon took up a 3-day weekend. Iceland's going to take up a 3-day weekend. I'm visiting a friend the weekend after that in London. That's going to be a 2-day weekend. And then I've got a week spare, and then I go off on the cruise for, to the Netherlands and Amsterdam and that for, a 5-day cruise. That's going to take up like a Tuesday to Sunday thing. I mean, God blimey, I have never had so much activity in January and February. This is meant to be my quiet, stress-free period. And yeah, this is all fun stuff. It's still stress, but it's fun stress. But man, what happened? This is not what's meant to happen, but I'm just glad that not a lot of games are getting released at the moment. Although, yes, Wormspan, hopefully I can get that one soon. Somebody can order that for me on the Stonemaier Champion thing and I can do a review for that, but we'll have to wait and see. There's more to come. Anyway, I better get off because the camera's going to run out of battery soon. So that's it for me on this episode of the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and let me know your comments down below. Do you like these games? Do you hate them? I'd like to hear your thoughts, and I hope you don't hate these games because I love them to bits, but like I say, different strokes for different folks. Hopefully some of the obscure ones I've talked about here will take your fancy. So take care, and remember, regardless of whether FizzCake approves of your choices or not, it's still only a game. So take care, and bye for now.